What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the previews for Hogwarts Legacy. So they are out. There are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of them, and I want to walk through a couple different things as well, because it certainly seems like some people, and I believe it's the universal people, they got to see more than others. I've heard being floated around or just set out right in videos, some of these previews, PlayStation Access being one, by the way, that's a very good preview, that they played 60 minutes, whereas we know that the Universal people played 2 hours. So I don't know how big of a difference it was. It certainly seems like, at least for right now, today, they're only allowed to talk about certain things. We'll go over those certain things. But it seems like the people that played an hour versus the people that played 2 hours, they're showing the exact same, situations no matter what. And then maybe the people like James, Ben, Retro, all of them, maybe they have kind of like a part two, a little bit of extra stuff. However, and a thing to also talk about with this preview event, while there's a lot of positives, I'm going to talk about it, and I don't even know if this is necessarily a negative, this was extremely strict, right? Very, very strict. They kept them on the beaten path, but it's expected for a and I had said this, leading into this preview event. It's expected that they're going to go where they're told to go. They kind of have a little bit of leeway, but overall, they did exactly what the developers wanted them to do in this playthrough kind of experience, all right? So in terms of some new stuff, I think James Expecto Go did a really good job putting it together, climbing, but more than anything, okay? And let's just talk about this for just a couple seconds. Swimming. So we finally got swimming, but you cannot dive. So you can't. So actually, I was right. I had predicted you'd be able to swim, but you wouldn't be able to go under the water. Wow. It hurts hearing it to a degree. Like, the first part of me is very, very excited for that. Obviously, you guys know my insanely odd obsession for water. It does hurt that you can't go under it, but honestly, I'm just glad that we're able to go into it. So, they said swim, just like jump. So I'm very pleased, with that whole situation. So it seems like, again, whether you played an hour of this or whether you played 2 hours of this, it was broken up into the same segments no matter what. So they got to do the character creator. Then they got to do a couple different things regarding exploration, one of which was just broom flying. They were able to fly around Hogwarts, but they were limited, right? They were limited to kind of the Hogwarts grounds, being able to fly around. But one thing that, of course, stands out, at least for me watching them, is that it looks beautiful. It really, really looks good. From the architecture to the lighting, I'm pleased with it. And I've said it before, the textures, the smaller things, when you really start to zero in on something, that's where this game is a little bit more shaky. But for the most part, the architecture, when you're just walking around Hogwarts and you see these huge, huge buildings, it looks phenomenal. It looks absolutely amazing. So it's cool that was kind of built into their preview. It's just like, go explore. You can explore on the ground, do a couple side things, go to a couple locations. That's another thing. When they were walking around the castle, in terms of like where they were primarily at, they were only allowed to go into a couple different rooms. With that being said, those rooms look great. Like, there's not too much to say. Number one, you could watch their videos for like visual verification of how it looks. But number two, I mean, like you're seeing these rooms. I think the biggest thing that the exploration really proves to people that maybe didn't know it already is just the attention to detail, right? How much Hogwarts is going to actually be Hogwarts. And I think, number one, that's a huge part of the game. And it shows, because it's a big part of the preview event, that they just want you to kind of explore and look around. That makes a lot of sense to me. You had the combat, which I will say this, across the board, I feel like people liked it quite a bit. In fact, some of the people that, aren't the diehard Hogwarts people, haven't talked about it too much, but that played it, a lot of them had said how pleasantly surprised they are. So people that were kind of out of the know, maybe they didn't even watch the second gameplay showcase, which was very heavy, kind of combat. A lot of people really liked it. Honestly, I don't want to say like it seemed hard. I feel like people kind of had troubles with it. I mean, again, you can go to each individual person and tell me what you think about it, but it seems like, and I like that. I've talked about it before. There's the Harry Potter fan side of this game that I think they're going to nail. It's going to be a 10 out of 10. But then there's the RPG side, and like, how well are they going to do it? Well, the combat is really one of the first steps or it's one of the biggest things because you're going to be doing combat ideally quite often, in this game. So spells, chaining them together, it's got to make sense. It's got to work. And honestly, it seems to work. It also seems to kind of be difficult. You see people getting hit quite often, people failing to hit, I guess make blocks or have parries. I think part of that is just because there's all these enemies and they're firing at you and you maybe can't even see it until it's too late. Maybe you see a spell out of the corner of your eye right when it's about to hit you. Very realistic, I would argue. But, I honestly really, really like that. So, again, combat, it's a lot of the same spells that we've seen, in use before. Obviously, a little different, like a dragon arena, 2 dragons fighting each other, right? So the story background of it was a little bit different, but seeing that fight, it's like, yeah, it looks just as good as it did whenever that was, 2 months ago for the Gameplay Showcase 2. But then also, because you don't have Alan playing it, it looks way more raw, right? It looks like people are kind of figuring it out on the spot, which is normal and you would expect that, right? And so that was kind of fun to see. They showed mini games. There's lock picking. Well, lock picking I wouldn't necessarily call a mini game, but it's something you do. There's that curling game with the ball. I saw some people do really well at it. I saw some people do not so well at it. Seemed fun. Again, what I seem to have heard throughout the entire thing, the limitations that Avalanche and Warner Bros. Imposed, where there's other things to do. There will be other things to do. I think it maybe was a Games Radar article that talked about 100+ side quests. I want to say it was side quests. Also, speaking of Games Radar, we heard through them, I believe because they interviewed somebody from there, that they were talking about the whole morality and how the game remembers and things which we've obviously discussed at great lengths. And one thing I was very pleased to at least hear, and again, now we need to see it. We can't just hear it, is that characters are going to be able to reference things that you do on the opposite side. So if you are in a main mission with somebody, if you did a side quest with that person, they will be able to reference that. They will know that you did that, and vice versa. I guess if you don't do it, they'll know that as well. So that's good. That's very, very good. I like to hear, and again, seeing these things, generally it's all the same thing. Generally it's the same footage, just different characters, but same footage being shown from everybody. The things that are different are, I don't know, where they maybe press the developers a little bit more or where they've kind of mentioned something. I heard, oh god, maybe it was IGN, which by the way, ending of IGN's preview, disgustingly bad. And the likes to dislikes show it. But I believe they were the ones that said Persona. They talked about a Persona-like feel when you're walking through the castle and just kind of hanging out with people. And I don't think, I'm not saying all of a sudden now I'm going to transform my thoughts to say this game is Persona, but just hearing that it's, that somebody thinks to Persona when they play this game, that makes me very happy, because if you're going to try to mimic without mimicking, I guess, a game, Persona is obviously, top of the list, right? So that's good. Again, the Games Radar thing with characters remembering, or characters, I guess, being able to reference, right? Although the game can't remember what you did, characters referencing whether you did a mission or not. And I think, and you probably would be able to see this, I know a lot of people posted just kind of raw footage, just like the preview that they played. I had seen people mention how there are audible gasps and stuff. Characters react in the moment when you do things. So when you do an unforgivable curse on an enemy, characters around will audibly be upset or be shocked that you did it. Again, that's it. It's not new. I'm not saying this is some revolutionary feature that Hogwarts has. It's been done before. But to see that they know that those things probably are important. I like it when games do that. I think Red Dead 2 is one of the best examples of games that do it. That's what you kind of strive for, right? You kind of strive for livable worlds, but so livable that when you do things, there's consequences, or at least there's reactions in the moment. So when you do something, if there's other people around, they wouldn't just stare there like a blank dummy. They would say something, or they would gasp, or they would do whatever. And that's what this game has that to an extent. So, overall, looked good. It doesn't the swimming is maybe one of the biggest things, and that's just because I'm a freak, but honestly, it's not too much. I think that's maybe one final thing to say. there's the story, there's that story mission. They actually got to play a story. So remember, it was like customization, flying brooms, then you can kind of walk around certain locations. You could do side things, which is mainly that curling. You do combat, which I also do think included the kind of the practice arena, right, with the other students. And that was probably the first thing that they were able to do with combat to kind of get used to it. But then they also got to participate in a main story mission. That's the one where you see a lot of like stealth takedowns of enemies. If you've seen the gameplay of it, that was that one. So, you get a little stuff here and there, but overall, and again, it's why I said in the beginning, I don't even know if it's a negative about how like restrictive they were, because ultimately they're trying to hide stuff. And it was very structured. You're going to do this, then you're going to do this. You can go there, but you can't go there. And that was kind of how this event seemingly was. So there we go. I don't really know how much more there is to say. I'll keep watching. I watched several of these previews before and I guess read. Some of them are reading. So I'll keep up on it. And if there's anything I missed or maybe smaller details that people find important, I can maybe cover it in the future videos, okay? Thank you all for watching. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on. One day, when we're too big to ignore, maybe they'll invite me. Doubtful, but it is what it is. And I hope to see you all on the next one.